G'day, Tosh. Thank you for joining us. How are you going?
Pleasure, Matthew. Yeah, very good, thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking your lunch break to talk about, I guess, your experience with the one-on-one program that we've just finished. These are interviews that I run whenever someone's happy to do them with me to just give a sense of what actually happens during the program, the surprises, the good bits, the bad bits. Yeah, I guess to start, where I wanted to go back to was sort of where we met, because you and I are, we would call us friends,
Yes.
for sure. And we met, what, 4 odd years ago in, I guess, a professional context on an investment call.
Yeah, met an investment call. I was a long time back sufferer. I think I was like suffering back pain at the time of that call, and everything you said in your pitch, yeah, pricked my ears, gained my attention, and yeah, off we went. I was very keen to see you succeed and selfishly get some tips and tricks for my back and body along the way.
Yeah, awesome. So that was about, I guess, 4 years ago. That was
Hmm.
the height of COVID, a Zoom call. We didn't get any investment from the call, but I got a Tosh out of it. So that was great. And you sort of then were around for, I guess, I sort of closed my clinic by then, but we had started, we'd built the app for Bodyguard. We were working on some other different sort of education products. And you had experiences with, was it the app initially and then the book before the one-on-one program? How did that work?
Yeah, well, I think even initially it was even just in conversation with you because I mean at that time I think it was I think it was just before or just after we met. I was in a really bad way with my back. I was up to like 10 or 12 Nurofen a day just to cope. Couldn't sit at a desk to work. I was lying down and sort of trying to keep up with work. And yeah, the thought of running, let alone walking 6 kilometers was very distant. So yeah, I was in a pretty bad way. So I think for me it just started in our conversations, just tuning in more to, yeah, I guess like what causes pain in the body, and the capacity for the body to work pain free. Um, yeah, I think so. I think initially it was just like one or two exercises that you put me onto, even just like different sitting position that made a big difference. The elevating hips above knees at the desk, and getting computers at eye level. Um, yeah, just yeah, were things that made an immediate difference. But then yeah, I think the book probably more so than the app as like the first thing that kind of got me going deeper. So it was like book, app, you know, tinkering one-on-one program as
Yeah,
the
lots
as
of
the kind of thing.
conversations in between, lots of ideas.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, at some point you decided you'd sort of gotten on top of the back pain, but you wanted to try the one-on-one program. And you sort of did have some pain stuff going on, but you also had broader goals. I was hopeful you could sort of talk about what motivated you to do the whole kit and caboodle, to try the proper one-on-one program, because it's 8 weeks. It's a fairly big commitment of time. What
Yeah.
what made you want to do it, and what were the sort of goals that you brought to it?
Yeah, it's probably 12 months ago. Yeah, maybe 12 or 18 months ago, my oldest boy decided getting into running. And yeah, a bit like as you do as a parent, you want to keep up with your kids and like, it gives you motivation to kind of explore that interest. So I started running. We started to like compare running notes. And yeah, at some point I read a book called Born to Run, which sort of opened my mind to this idea that running could be enjoyable. I've always hated
Yeah.
running. So I was like, okay, maybe running can be enjoyable. Maybe I should do this more. Yeah, eventually signed up to an actual, yeah, a 21-kilometer trail run. But I did the city to surf and sort of got through that without too much problem, but signed up to the 21-kilometer trail and I thought, okay, I need to take this more seriously. I'm not going to cope with this without some
Yeah.
level of, actual guidance and support. So yeah, that was the trigger to do one-on-one program. But yeah, you're right. Like it was also had some shoulder pain at the time that was yeah sort of ongoing. Yeah, they wanted to address it at the same time.
Yeah, so I remember there was like an acute shoulder thing that had been bothering you for, I think it was a few weeks or a few months or something, and affecting your sleep, and you couldn't roll onto that side. And we sort of very quickly, I think, identified this fairly common shoulder complaint that does that. And so, with the massage ball and some exercises, we were pretty quick to get on top of that.
Yeah.
And so I guess, yeah, the focus was really on sort of that running outcome of being able to do that run without it just being a world of hurt.
Yes.
And I think, like, personally, I really, I didn't discover a joy of running until my early 30s, 32, 33, which is not that wildly long ago, but certainly it wasn't sort of a staple for me. It wasn't something my body was naturally good at. It wasn't something that I'd been exposed to in a way that was even close to being considered joyful. It was just hurt and pushing myself too hard. And I think, yeah, once you start to open that door and go, well, hang on, why did people love it so much? And what are the ways that I sort of am culturally conditioned to think about running? For you, obviously, keeping up with your boys was the sort of the primary motivator, but in the process, you sort of got a new hobby, yes, and now it's something that you really enjoy. You have sort of pushed through to that happiness with running.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, maybe to mirror like my, growing up, I played a huge amount of sport, played all the sports, always loved it, but always hated training, always hated getting fit for sport. Would
Yeah.
happily run for an hour playing rugby or tennis or whatever. But the training bit I always suffered. So I think in my 20s I did one 10-kilometer run, hated it, complete sufferfest. I think in my 30s I did one 6 or 8 kilometer run, which was like slightly less torturous, and sort of with a friend. But yeah, so I sort of went from being like, you know, uh, over 43 years having run twice, 6 kilometers plus, to all of a sudden like doing 6 or 8 kilometer sort of training runs and yeah, events at sort of 14 kilometers plus. So it's sort of yeah, there's a massive jump. It's probably helpful to have that context. It's not, yeah, what I've done in the last 12 months has been a massive jump from my historical experience with running. And yeah, really for the first time, yeah, finding I can enjoy it. Yeah, finding it more sort of meditative and refreshing than a sufferfest.
We've probably lost a few people watching this that really hate running and heard the word meditative with it. But I agree. Everyone can, I think arrive at that with the right type of training. But one of the things that I'm not sure if we mentioned, you actually did have, so you had the shoulder that was bothering you in an acute setting, and we sort of got on top of that very quickly. But there was a pain signal associated with also the concern around the running, which was you were having trouble with one of your knees, I think. What was going on with that?
Yeah, so I think the pain stuff with running was probably twofold. Yeah, one was yeah, kind of pretty sharp, sort of like that sort of stabby sharp pain down the front of a knee. Um, if I think back to sort of say when I was having those back problems, I would try and run 3 or 4 kilometers, and it would kick in at that point. In the last 12 months, when I was sort of trying to build up volume and get to these longer distances, yeah, probably at that sort of 6 kilometer mark, it would often kick in or running up hills. But then, yeah, the other one was a real sort of clunky, not lots of acute pain, but sort of more like a dull, clumpy pain in hips. Um, again, probably more of like a post run thing. So yeah, in the program, yeah, we really sort of honed in on that to address it. And yeah, I think as I was saying before the call, I think I've signed up for the next sort of long run, started training for that. So I did 35 kilometers in the last 8 days, completely pain free, knee, hips, yeah, completely fine. So yeah, it's been um yeah, even just in the last 3 or 4 months, let alone the last 3 or 4 years, there's been a massive jump up in the kind of running I can do and the level of enjoyment that's possible without that pain.
Yeah, so we can get the spoiler out the way. Tosh is moving really well. His knee feels good. His shoulder feels good. But I think what would be really helpful is to kind of think about like the program itself.
Mm.
And I guess I'm curious, one, if it was what you were expecting going into it, which maybe was a little bit colored by the fact that we chat a lot and you sort of obviously had a relatively good awareness. But I imagine there were still some things that you imagined were going to be in the program that weren't or were. And yeah, so I guess what were you expecting going in? And I guess by extension, were there any surprises as you worked through the program?
I think in a funny way, the surprise was like to do it well, to do the program well, and maybe the program well in the context of, trying to train for event, just how much time is involved. I'd probably mentally thought, oh yeah, like, 30 minutes a day, maybe an hour a day sometimes, like this will kind of be super manageable. So I think, yeah, probably underestimated, underappreciated the amount of time needed to do it well, as opposed to just yeah, check boxes. And yeah, just probably had a bit going on just in my life at the time, which I hadn't sort of factored into the whole regime. So yeah, sort of moved house, had interstate work trips, and so it was hard to maintain a steady routine. But yeah, in terms of the actual program itself, like what I learnt, how it shifted, so running technique and comfort and things, I think was certainly in line with expectations. Um, yeah, a massive relief to get to the bottom of the sort of shoulder issue. Yeah, it was probably, I guess one of the things that's maybe unexpected is um, yeah, the kind of the improvement's not linear. And it's like
Yep.
you might be doing the thing for a week expecting a result, um, not get it, and then I don't know, you feel like you're not doing anything different the next week, but then all of a sudden you're getting the result you expected. Or conversely, like you might get a
Yeah.
really, really quick result from something, thinking that it was going to take, 3 weeks. So for me, I think like some of the shoulder relief stuff probably took longer than I hoped or expected, and maybe that was a factor of it had actually accumulated over a fairly long time, over the 3 months. Whereas some of the running stuff, some of the I think like split deads and some of the core work to kind of strengthen through core and glutes and things, that had a really immediate impact. Like I would do an
Yeah.
exercise once or twice, and then the next time I ran, I was like, oh, I feel like I'm in someone else's body. So yeah, sort of like in over the course of the program, I think I got more or less what I wanted or expected out of it. But the actual the trajectory, the how you get there is a bit unpredictable.
Yeah, and it's funny. I can with a lot of people be like, I reckon 3 weeks, right, for this
Mm,
thing to happen. And like a lot of the time, I'm not far off. But
mm,
sometimes, bodies react in different ways. They do their own thing. I think that's also why it's important, even just psychologically, for people to opt into a process. I think,
mm,
appointment-based care, traditional appointment-based care incentivizes us to, wait until we're really frustrated, book a quick session. And as soon as the symptoms start to taper away, then we, kind of because of the cost and the
mm,
structure
mm,
of it and life gets busy, we kind of would be inclined to just stop going before we sort of finish the job. Whereas when you're
mm,
sort of
mm,
locked into this process, you get to see those natural undulations and you get to give your body a chance to respond. And I think one of the other key things, particularly with the shoulder as well as the knee, both of them we sort of came to understand together were sort of
mm,
not far off capacity issues, where if you pushed your shoulder outside of its comfort zone, we'd see that sort of symptom come back up, but then we would settle it down, build that resilience, and it would happen less and less often. And
mm,
similar with the knee, you had intermittent knee pain signals throughout the running, but they were less and less, less and less often. And because I think, and you can maybe answer this, but
mm,
from my perspective, when people understand the why behind why they're sore, the sort of the distress and the concern starts to drift away,
mm, mm,
and then we can just see it for what it is and say, well, yeah, my knee was a bit sore and I'm going to change this the next time I run. And we don't catastrophize and say, oh no, the knee hurt again at the 10K mark. My knee must be really bust. That idea that our body's bad or broken, as opposed to, oh, interesting. Like my
mm.
body decided to send that signal at that point. What can I do to stop that happening next time? Did that, I guess, as you sort of were working through your running schedule, yeah, how did you feel about those times when the knee pain popped back up?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely that kind of frustration. Yeah, it's like you've got in mind, okay, I want to be running, 10 or 12K at this time, this far out from an event, and yeah, you're not quite there. So there's that immediate frustration. But yeah, I guess being able to talk about it, understand it, tweak the training around it, yeah, it definitely helps. It's not a binary, oh, I have to stop now. It's, oh no, I can keep
Yeah.
going, but with these tweaks. I think the other really big thing was because our work together just helped me think about my body differently, not just in the context of training, but just
Yeah,
day-to-day life. I would do things where it's like you've got a heavy load of shopping, of groceries or whatever. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna like load my shoulders differently. I'm going to get into the car, out of the car, whatever, differently to how I would normally. And so the benefit, there's probably like a compounding benefit there. It's like you're using those opportunities to train your muscles, use your muscles differently. Um, but B, it's not like you're just getting better at running. You're getting better
yeah.
at like, yeah, getting around day to day. So yeah, I think that's part of the benefit of yeah, not just like training to solve a problem or training to deliver a specific outcome, like run this fast over that distance. By taking that broader approach of no, 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 this is how you use your body, this is how you should use your body. You get this compounding benefit in different facets of your life.
Yeah, so I guess when I hear that, I think about the education element, right? Like that sort of body literacy piece, the pain literacy piece, and the idea of, I guess, progressing from that like problem solution fit. Like I've got pain, I need something to solve the pain, like the ibuprofen or, a quick stretch or whatever,
Mm,
to a much more holistic, how does my body work? Why is it having trouble with these movements? Is it my body's fault? Is it my environment's fault? Which is typically where we arrive at, realizing that our
mm,
body's just, trying to adapt to an environment that's very different to what it's evolved to do.
mm,
And so, yeah, as those sort of signals pop up and that awareness of what's contributing, then you just kind of, you said compounding effect, but yeah, you just kind of get a sense of like, oh, like these things are not like try to stand up straight all day, mind over matter. These things are sort of I would guess that as you worked this out, it didn't feel like more effort when you were doing that. It felt like you had more information or more sensory sort of context.
exactly. Maybe one way of thinking about it is that instead of having 30 minutes training a day, because you're doing a specific exercise, you basically get 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours of training today because you're building in that knowledge to everything you do. So yeah, for me, I think one of the first sessions we had, you showed me this image of the body, and I can't remember the exact language, but it's sort of like the inside muscles and the outside muscles.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And like we want to load the inside ones, but we typically, default to the outside ones to compensate. And yeah, whether it was like doing the exercises that you sort of specified or doing the run training or getting around day to day, always had that kind of yeah, sort of mental framework to default back to. Um, yeah, which I think is yeah, super helpful and super different. Yeah, very different to say yeah, I guess like conventional treatment, which might be much more like solving specific problems in time, not not building, complete understanding or a yeah, deeper awareness of what's going on.
Yeah. And so I guess that's really in our first session together, we sort of do a bit of theory, right? We do that. I mean,
Mm,
it's probably also worth calling out, like you and I did our whole program purely online, right? We never met in person for it. And that obviously has worked. You've had the outcome that you wanted. I'm
mm,
never too fussed whether we do in person or online. A blend of the two, I think, is sometimes nice, but it doesn't really matter. But I guess first session we load up on theory. We look at
mm,
deeper core structures that spread throughout the body, not just the abdominal core. We look at the common compensation patterns. We look at some of the key movements that are often at the heart of why our body starts to struggle in our 40s and our
mm,
50s. And then throughout the program, we kind of keep referencing them, right? We keep coming back to them and circling back and kind of reinforcing. And I think at the end of that, that's that education piece that sure, you get some exercises and you get stronger in specific ways that are like tied to your goals. But
mm,
at the heart of it is this awareness of cause and effect, um,
mm.
of when the body complains, it often complains in a really intelligent way. And so, yeah, I'm really pleased to hear that I guess resonated and stuck through it. And then, yeah, the awareness of where we are in space just kind of improves as well, our spatial awareness, and
Mm.
that drip feeds into everything else that we do. And so, I guess one question that comes up then is something that I think surprises people when they go through the program is how different they feel in their body that is completely disconnected from the idea of are they sore or not.
Mm.
So that idea of, well, I won't put words in your mouth, but you and I have both spoken about what it felt like when things were humming.
Mm-mm. I guess, yeah, I guess, yeah, I mean, there's like a day-to-day thing of feeling, I don't know, lighter, stronger, more agile. I think one of the interesting things was, so in the 21-kilometer run I did, yeah, I really had in mind like if I get through to the end and yeah, I'm not in acute pain or whatever, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
And I sort of set out with that in mind. I hadn't really thought about, I don't know, nutrition on the run.
Yeah.
And so it was sort of curious. I got to like 13 or 14 Ks, had totally stuffed my nutrition, totally blew up. I ran with a doctor friend and he was like, "Oh yeah, you had all the signs of someone who should pull out of the race, or whatever." The goosebumps, struggling with temperature regulation and fluids and whatever. Anyway, but my body was completely fine, like absolutely no knee pain. Actually felt really good in my body. So at around that 14 Ks, got up a hill and just had, yeah, lots of food, had a proper rest and was contemplating finishing or not finishing. Thankfully decided to finish. And then the surprising thing was, yeah, as I, as the body, dealt with the nutrition side, I actually just started running really comfortably and like feeling really good. So again, not just, oh, my knees don't hurt, more like, oh, actually,
Yeah.
I'm really hammering along the course. And I don't know how long I stopped for at that time, but I probably lost at least 20 minutes to the guys I was running with at that time. But then I finished maybe like 5 or 10 minutes behind them. So that 14 to 21K, block was actually really strong. So yeah, it's um encouraging, exciting, tantalizing to think that, yeah, you can get to the end not just not suffering. You can get to the end actually feeling pretty good in your body. Um, yeah, I'm sure a huge part of that for me. I can remember really thinking consciously around sort of like tucking in the pelvis, just
Yeah.
like activate and just like really running a bit higher, in my upper body and really running on my glutes. Yeah, not loading up the front of the knee. So I remember just like being really conscious of that through that section, knowing that, okay, this is when I'm tired, this is when the pain should kick in. So yeah, it's this tantalizing excitement that stuff works. And it's like, ooh, how much further could I run pain free? How much faster could I
Absolutely.
run pain free? I need to I
Yeah.
need to get my lungs better now.
I was just going to touch on that. So, like, nutrition is something that we touched on, at least as like a, hey, let's put this on your radar. And it was something
Mm,
that you sort of didn't nail for the race day, but the body survived really well.
mm,
But it's kind of interesting. A lot of these activities, the first one or two you do just kind of gives you that confidence that it's doable. And then when that self-doubt goes away because you've proven it, then all that other information, becomes absorbable, right? So you're like,
mm,
oh, if I actually care about performance now, what do I do? And, what can I learn from this experience?
mm,
And so, yeah, I think you're describing in a sort of a different way that, yeah, the level of information that we can access in terms of how our body's doing and adjusting our position and technique and running style on the fly, when we're not just kind of saying, run as hard as we can, yeah, and that kind of no pain, no gain rubbish where we just push our bodies in this trauma fest.
mm, mm,
And if the pain's there, we're like, oh, I hate my knee because that pain. You're like, oh, cool, I'm running. I can sense some of the early signs of fatigue because we've been speaking about that for a few weeks. And oh, my foot's starting to turn out, or I can feel myself being heel heavy, or I need to tuck the pelvis under and make sure I'm driving for my hips. All that information becomes it's just there all of a sudden. It's like it's an opening experience, whereas pain and the uncertainty and anxiety that it typically brings with it is often a subtracting and narrowing force where we just start to fixate on the knee and we don't think about the chain of the leg. And so, yeah, as you start to, first things first, second things second, can I run that far? Can I run that far well? Can I run that far and enjoy it? Can I run further and enjoy? Like, you just kind of keep straight. And that's the beautiful thing about, I think, running this program and helping people reclaim that confidence in their body, because bodies are just so incredible and resilient, is you unleash potential, right? People get to stop subtracting and start expanding and challenge themselves and realize how capable they are. And my hope is that that bleeds into the rest of our lives as well. But given that it's your lunch break and we should start relatively soon, I think the last question that I want to run past you is just, I'm curious what's next for you. So you obviously got exposed to a lot of different exercises throughout the program. You got the run training. What do you see for the next sort of 3 to 6 months in terms of where you'll be putting your focus moving forward?
Well, I was just going to touch on quickly some of you were saying there, because I think, yeah, again, like growing up, all of my physical, all my sport, the training I did with people was very much in that pain is gain mentality,
Yeah.
and sort of like you expect your body to hurt, but then you also expect to push through,
Yeah.
and this like suffering means you're doing the right thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a massive thing to unlearn, and it kind of yeah, I can imagine for people who maybe haven't explored the alternative, it's like feels a bit like a different way is impossible, or like people are making this up. People, like how could pain not be gain? How could you possibly gain, with comfort? Yeah, so it's like really wonderful. Yeah, I think it takes a lot to kind of get in the different headspace first, before you can sort of train differently and experience it all differently. But yeah, well worth the effort. So, yeah, next 3 to 6 months. Yeah, I guess it's trying to. Yeah, so I've signed up for another a 22K trail, similar like total elevation, but less sharp elevation. So hoping um yeah, it's like yeah, it's challenging, but not as challenging as my first trail run. I probably bit off more
Yeah.
than I could chew. Um, yeah, and I guess it's now, yeah, knowing I can get through something like that without pain. The next phase is more like, okay, cool. Like how light and fast can I do this? If I get nutrition right and maybe do more work on lung capacity, that sort of side of endurance, like, yeah, how quickly can I go? So yeah, so I've got some sort of, yeah, training volumes sort of loosely in mind. Yeah, running with a group of friends on the trail again. So yeah, just see where it gets to. Um, yeah, I don't think at this stage I don't see myself becoming a marathon type runner and doing the long road type runs, but certainly trail runs. Yeah, I just find genuinely very enjoyable. Like we said at the start of the call, like quite meditative. So yeah, love the idea of just being able to, without thinking too much, get out for a 15 or 20K sort of trail run, and just with some water on my back and the right snacks, and a couple of mates, and that being a nice day out.
I was going to say, I very much look forward to playing back this video for you in 3 years when you're eyeing up 160-kilometer ultra in Tassie or something. I reckon you've got the bug, but I think that's sort of just a natural progression, right? Of just realizing that there's something to learn. Like there's a physical like task to do, a challenge, which, I think a lot of us crave that sense of purpose. But in the process, you're like, oh, there's a whole rich learning experience here. And a lot of the ultra marathon runners talk about, one of the things that they love about it is that they know however long their race is, whether it's a 10-hour or a 3-hour, whatever, they know that they're going to go through the full spectrum of emotions, right? From absolute misery, sufferfest, to pure elation, to kind of clarity and meditative. And that's part of the dynamic. So my guess, having met lots of good runners over the years, is that you will not be satisfied at 22 kilometers for long. But with that in mind, let's sign off there. Thank you very much for sharing your experience with the program. I hope it's really helpful to anyone watching who's thinking about doing something similar. And so, yeah, just a huge thank you for your time, for doing the program. And Yeah, enjoy the rest of your day, mate.
Pleasure, Matt. Thank you for your time on the program. No, it's been an absolute pleasure and joy to work with you and to experience the results firsthand. So thank you.
Thanks, Tosh. All right, I'll catch you later.
Bye.